Hello, welcome to part 2 of the video for absolute value operations. So what we're going to include now is math operations with the absolute value bars. So what we need to remember is that the bars mean to find the absolute value. So what we're going to do, we're going to find the absolute value of 5 first. So it says the absolute value of 5 minus 7. Well, the absolute value of 5 is 5, and then we'll do minus 7. 5 minus 7 is negative 2, and that's going to be our solution that we enter. For this problem, we want to do the absolute value, or we want to do the math first, then find the absolute value. So we need to do 5 minus 7. So we'll say that 5 minus 7 is negative 2, and we need to find the absolute value of negative 2. So we did 5 minus 7 and got negative 2. And then the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. So we have two situations. Find the absolute value first, and do the math first, then find the absolute value. Let's look at letter B for another example. It says we need to find the absolute value of 9 plus 8. So the absolute value of 9 is 9 plus 8. 9 plus 8 is 17. That's going to be our solution. Down here it says negative 9 plus 8, and then find the absolute value. Negative 9 plus 8 is negative 1. So now we need to find the absolute value of negative 1, and that is 1. Let's look at one more example before I send you off on your own. Evaluate the following and wants the absolute value of negative 3 plus 7 first. Negative 3 plus 7 gives me positive 4, so I have the absolute value of positive 4, and that is 4. Here it says negative 3, the absolute value of negative 3 plus 7. So the absolute value of negative 3 is positive 3 plus 7 equals 10. So my solutions are 4 and 10. Go ahead and practice letter D on your own. Letter D says find the absolute value of negative 5 plus 7. So we need to do 5 because it's the absolute value plus 7 equals 12. And then here it says find the absolute value of negative 5 plus 7. So negative 5 plus 7 first, and that gives me the absolute value of 2, which is 2. Alright, excellent. Now let's look at a couple more examples. Letter E says evaluate the following. The absolute value of negative 15 minus the absolute value of 8 minus 8. Now these look complicated, but they're really not. So what we just need to make sure we do is we need to work left to right. Okay, so first we need to find the absolute value of negative 15, and that's going to be 15. Minus the absolute value of 8 minus 8, which is 0. And this is the absolute value of 0, not 101. So now I can solve the problem. 15, the absolute value of 0 is 0, so 15 minus 0 equals 15. Oh my goodness, look at letter F. Look how crazy this is. Not crazy at all. All this means is that we need to find the absolute value of all this inside. So it says find the absolute value of the absolute value of 4 minus 9 minus the absolute value of 11. So let's look at it. So we just need to put a big set of absolute value brackets in. And then we need to do 4 minus 9, which is 4 minus 9 is negative 5. So we want the absolute value of negative 5 minus the absolute value of 11, which is 11. So this equals the absolute value of negative 5 is 5 minus 11. And now we can do, so the absolute value of 5 minus 11, it gives me the absolute value of negative 6. And the absolute value of that is 6. So we're doing a lot of absolute value of absolute values. But if you just break it down small, chunk by chunk as we go, it's a really not as complicated process. Let's look at one more of these big guys. So letter G says find the absolute value of all the stuff inside. So first let's draw our big absolute value bar so that we can work in. And it says find the absolute value of negative 13. The absolute value of negative 13 is 13 minus the absolute value of 10 minus 4, which is 6. So let's put our big absolute value bar back. So we need to do 13 minus the absolute value of 6, which is 6. So we need the absolute value of 13 minus 6. This equals 7. So we need the absolute value of 7, which we know is 7. Go ahead and try letter H on your own. Letter H says find the absolute value of 10 minus 15. So 10 minus 15 is negative 5. So we have to find the absolute value of negative 5 minus the absolute value of 6, which was 6. So that looks like the absolute value of negative 5 is 5, minus 6 is negative 1. So remember, just follow your absolute values and do your operations when it tells you to. It's a pretty simple thing. Good luck.